Hello and welcome to the big picture. For the first time in recent memory, we have a situation where two journalists of a major news channel have been arrested and sent to judicial custody after spending 2 days in police custody, and the media fraternity is silent. Meanwhile, the arrest of the two ZTV senior journalists has opened a barrage of self-criticism within the media circles, even as the public watches the introspection going on with trepidation. The fact is that in the last 2 decades, media and the business of media has grown exponentially and has been clocking double-digit growth, outpacing even India's GDP growth. However, even as the media has grown in volumes, the credibility has dipped in inverse proportion. The financial and political clout acquired by the media should have meant better quality of public discourse and higher standards of ethics, but sadly that has not happened. Why has the media been struck with this credibility crisis? Where does the problem lie? And with the arrest of these two high-profile journalists from a major media house, does it mean media is no more the holy cow? And is this the beginning of the change? We will discuss all this today with an eminent panel of journalists. Nalini Singh, a senior journalist and a pioneer in investigative journalism on television. Hartosh Singh Bal, political editor of Open Magazine, and others will be joining us very soon. Let me go to Nalini first. Nalini, the credibility crisis is real. We can't just escape it anymore, saying that in the present case of these two ZTV journalists, there are certain quarters who are saying that this is just an aberration. It is not something which is, the entire media industry should be worried about. It's just an aberration.
Oh no, I think media industry, in fact the country should be very worried about. This is certainly not an aberration. In fact, it is a manifestation of an undercurrent, but it was not an undercurrent for those who are insiders in the media. Right. There's plenty wrong. There's plenty that's going wrong, and I hope that you are right, and that you are in fact giving some sort of a prophetic hope that this is the beginning of the change. Media is. Let's just take the case in point today. I don't think Naveen Jindal is going to claim that business is all about honesty. That it's only that business is honest dealing, But we in the media say that we are honest, that we expose injustice.
Absolutely.
Now, nobody actually says too much that media is also a business. You spoke about it just now. But I think that our viewers or our consumers or our readers are not terribly aware that this is a business.
Big business now.
This is very big business. And at the heart of it is profit and its commerce. Now, what happens is, and it's certainly not wrong to earn profit, Absolutely. But you cannot earn profit by making others suffer or by compromising ethics to this extent when you say that you're in the business of upholding the truth. So, today you're absolutely right that in fact one should be. I do not think at all that this case can now, where it's come, that we should be sweeping anything under the carpet. The other thing that I've deplored, and I will deplore again, is this trade unionism that has existed amongst journalists. That if one of our fraternity is caught with their hands in the till, metaphorically, that we say no, but this is an aberration. This is not so. It is. Today, I'm not saying that Z is wrong or Jindal is right or anything, but I'm saying if such a thing has happened, this is half past bedlam. We have to wake up, and as you ask more, I think that one should actually say why has it come to such a pass?
Absolutely, we will come to that. Hartosh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Hartosh.
I can hear you.
Yes, Hartosh. The issue now is that this trying to brush under the carpet, as Nalini says, that saying that there is an aberration. I don't think we can hide ourselves. The media can hide itself under such things. The issue now is when two journalists go to jail, and it's interesting, as I said in my opening remarks, that the media is not screaming freedom of the press at stake. Isn't this a good beginning, if at all, for that change to happen within the media?
Yes, it's a good beginning, but I mean, we must be careful that much of this criticism is not a way of distancing ourselves from what these two journalists were doing. Because the question is not about individual journalists. What happened in this case has become systemic in the media.
Right.
We work, most of us today, in a model which is driven by advertising.
Right.
Media organizations function as a business, as Nalini Singh just said. And the question is, to what extent are these business houses willing to go to attract this advertising? And I think this case, from what is apparent now, is revelatory, but this is happening in various other media groups, media organizations, that this business of advertising has crossed the limits that we should set out for good journalism. It is not about advertisers approaching an organization because the organization does good journalism and is read, but rather that we are getting into a trade-off situation where advertising is given in return for certain favors, for a certain way of projecting a company, criticizing it or praising it.
Right.
And this is very, very problematic.
Okay.
Girish, I will just add that that power accrues from being in the media, and if you actually implement it well, then you are really very powerful. Power is then monetized. Then the money that comes in deepens your power, because you may plow back a lot of it into the media. But I think, once we are saying this, we are at the moment in a mode of self-flagellation, and we really should be. But also we should be very, very careful, because now the vested interests can come in. And, yesterday you've had the Levison report in
Absolutely.
the UK.
I will come to Levison.
But I'm just saying that they can come in, and you can already see the trends. With great respect to where I'm sitting just now, the Rajya Sabha TV, I should say the Prime Minister of the country, Dr. Manmohan Singh, has said a little while ago that the unrelenting exposés on corruption are undermining the self-confidence of the country or of the economy. That is one. When you see what is happening on the internet, then you see that people like the internet documentaries, then you also see that Salman Rushdie was not able to actually speak at the Jaipur festival, and none of the politicians actually came out because there were votes to be had in UP. But what I'm saying is that all of this is also pointing towards now a cusp, either. And all of this is going to hit at the two pillars that we want to protect in our democracy, which is pluralism and tolerance.
Absolutely.
So if we're not going to, so anybody can come in now. So this is a vulnerable moment, but
we will come to that. Now we are joined by Shoma Chaudhury, managing editor of Tehelka. Shoma, you run a magazine. We were talking of just before you came. I was asking both Nalini and Hartosh Singhbal about this attempts by a certain section of the media saying that what has happened with this ZTV case is an aberration. It is not you can't extend it to all sections of the media. It's just an aberration. But all of us agree that it's not an aberration anymore. The fact is that here are two journalists who are editors of that channel, who have been obviously or apparently asked by the owners to go and do this, whatever has been done. We will see. The case is still under. It's a sub judice case, but we are not going to the merits of it. But the issue has become very, very serious now. So you run a magazine. What is this? Is the business model of the media which is creating these problems?
Yeah, two things I'd like to say. One is that I don't think we should be squeamish about being very, very upfront that the Z editors are extremely in the wrong. I don't think this is a sub judice case. We are a journalist. When you can see evidence, you must be able to call that evidence. And I think if at this moment we are mild about it and we hide behind the smoke screen of saying this is for the courts to decide, that itself is a betrayal of what our primary job is.
Absolutely.
It's our fraternity, but let's call a spade a spade. This crosses every boundary of decency.
Me as an anchor, I would rather be a little more cautious. But
sure,
you have
but I would like to assert that
yes.
I think it is time to call what we see to be what it is.
Yes.
So I do believe that this was extortion outright. Mr. Jindal's own corruptions as a businessman is something which might be for a separate probe, but it doesn't obfuscate this situation at all. The other question you asked, I think there is a massive structural, ethical, financial crisis in the media.
Okay.
It is across the board. Some of it can be staved off by strong personalities of editors, but by and large, structurally, there is a huge problem. and we are dependent on corporate advertising for our survival. But I think the entire society is collusive in this, because as readers or consumers of news, people are just not willing to pay for news, you know. You're willing to spend on a cup of coffee, you're willing to spend on a packet of chips, but Tehelka, for instance, or any other print magazine sells for rupees 25.
Right.
If you really break down the cost of news gathering, of sending people on ground, which is again our primary job description, it would cost about 150, 200 rupees to produce one magazine.
Right.
Is that really too much to ask? You know, we are catering still to an English reading readership that very well is able to afford this, you know, but people don't want to pay for it. So the moment you do that, you're already becoming so dependent on the very people whom you're supposed to be holding in check.
Absolutely.
You know? So there's a structural issue. The same goes for the electronic media. The distribution costs, the carriage costs are so high that there is a, you know, it's like politics today. The moment you enter into this business, there's an inherent atmosphere that, you know, there's a structural reason why you will be corrupt.
You compromise on your ethics the moment you enter into politics.
Yeah, and similarly for media. But
for media also.
Having said that, I would like to assert that editors in their positions are still able to do much within the confines of our structures. Too often, editors capitulate when they should not, you know, and I think that is a problem.
That's a problem. Nalini, you know, taking forward from what Shoma said, you want to say something, but, you know, you can add this also. When she's talking of editors being able to stand up, the fact of the matter is nowadays editors are chosen not for their journalistic skills or their talent. It is for the contacts which they have and what kind of, you know, what they can bring to the table as far as the owners are concerned. That's another issue.
Actually, I think we should have come to our senses now, because we have such a cozy relationship with those whom we are trying to expose. Is there a journalist in Delhi, I don't know about Bombay and other places so much, who doesn't have close links with politicians?
Absolutely.
And now politicians have morphed into friends too.
Yes.
Please go and see what happens
There's
in the evening.
There's a huge incestuous relationship.
In the evenings in Delhi, who is with whom?
Right.
I mean, these lines are now blurred. Now, what is really happening is that when we are looking at the impact at the content, we are inflicting great damage on our, media is inflicting great damage on our country, on our society. And I say this after saying that the media actually has done a lot of good work in the last 2 or 3 decades or 5 decades or whatever. But you know,
that is taken. We should take it as taken.
Inflict great damage on reputations. We are playing with stock prices, etc. We are trivializing. There is a soporific, that if you manufacture soporific effect, then you are actually going to get more advertising. All of this comes with something which is even more sinister as far as I'm concerned, which is that media persons have now got a delusion of invincibility.
Absolutely.
That they feel they are now so powerful, and also they show that they are powerful, that they now can get away with anything. The arrogance that media people have now, which is now part and parcel of their arm twisting methods, also because also maybe it's gone deep inside them. So they are now for plush and flashy lives. I'm not saying please live on 500 rupees a month, but I'm saying there used to be something about simplicity and honesty.
That is no more. That doesn't seem to be any more existing in the media. The media people, you find a lot of media people dining and whining in the 5-star restaurants, paying from their own pocket, which is quite a interesting thing. Anyway, we need to go into a short break now. Please keep watching. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back. We are discussing what we think is the worst credibility crisis which the media in India is facing today. We are joined now by Mr. H.K.Dua former editor of major English language newspapers and a sitting MP in the Rajya Sabha. Welcome, Mr. Dua. Mr. Dua, before you came, we were discussing about the credibility crisis which has struck the Indian media, and the arrest of these two journalists of the Zee TV seems to have really opened up at least seems to have opened up the eyes of the media that we have reached, as Nalini was pointing out, that some people are trying to even now try to say that it's just an aberration and it is not engulfed all the media and things like that. But all Nalini and all my panelists here agree that it is not just an aberration. Now coming to you with your vast experience in the media, where did that change take place, that this kind of a credibility crisis hit the media? Why and where do you think it happened?
Actually, this is certainly a crisis situation for the media's credibility. There's no doubt about it.
Yes.
One, this, as they have said, and rightly so, this is not just an aberration. Media has taken liberties with its own credibility. Responsibility is its own. There are two problems media is facing. One is loss of credibility, and it's losing public support.
Right.
Which we should not ignore that. If we could defend ourselves against attempt to impose defamation bill in 1980s by a very powerful prime minister who had got elected with 402 seats.
Yes.
He could not push it through the Rajya Sabha. And after the Lok Sabha, he had to stop it, and he had to withdraw the bill because people were with us.
Right.
And we enjoyed more credibility than a powerful government had.
Absolutely.
Now, we are losing public support also if we lose credibility. And without public support, you will not be able to guide, to protect your freedom.
Right.
Now, what is happening is, this is followed by, this is preceded by another scandal which some media companies try to get mining licenses.
Yes.
And got those licenses.
Yes.
That is also affected.
That is not being discussed as much as these things.
Lately it is not being discussed.
Right.
It has gone out of the headlines,
Right.
certainly of the TV.
Yes.
Now, that's also caused a crisis.
Right.
You're using media freedom
There is enormous
for
political
deals with the government of the day, whether in the state
Mr.
government, whether in the central government, and you're taking mining licenses.
Mr. Dua, the enormous financial and political clout has been acquired by
Then the
media,
paid
and
news-
it is being used for purposes other than what it should be used for.
Even those who don't have cloud,
Yes.
the paid news is affecting media credibility at every stage.
Yes.
People don't know whether it's news or an ad. Now, the moment people can't distinguish what is news and what is an ad, where is the question of credibility?
Absolutely.
Now, you are taking money for publishing their ads through the news columns.
Yes.
Impossible state which we were not used to it.
Yes, Nalini.
Girish, I just want to say that, this decline, as Dua Sahab says, is not an aberration. We've all said that. Actually, we have not nosedived. This has been a relentless, steady, relentless, merciless decline. And we have actually, from each setback to our ethics, we've seen it succeeded. Nobody caught us out. Nobody found us out. So a little bit more. And along with that, I think it was buttressed by all the arrogance and this feeling of invincibility we had.
Hartosh, there was this feeling, as Nalini was pointing out, that we are invincible, the media is invincible. But I think this arrest of these two journalists should raise a warning, should be a warning signal for everybody and do you think that media is now no more a holy cow as far as the law is concerned?
It shouldn't be a holy cow, and we have to look at this question in a larger sense.
Yes.
Because, too often we restrict it to a question of regulation, self-regulation, will the government regulate? There are two parts to that whole issue. There's a problem of collecting news, there's a problem of media as a business.
Yes.
Who owns media? Who can run a channel? What cross-ownership regulation should be? Which business houses should be in media? These are not questions that can be regulated from inside the media.
Yes.
There are social questions which need to be discussed from outside media, and some legislation has to be in place to bring accountability. That is when you can get proper ways of operating for the business of media.
Absolutely.
When we come to within media, questions of how individual journalists can conduct themselves, well, there are issues there that we need to address, that we shy away from, that have changed over the last 10, 15, 20 years.
Absolutely.
One of them is this business of wearing two hats. A journalist being attached to the business end of media. It should not happen. Of journalists having shares in the companies they are working for. Our dedication should be to the idea of journalism, not to the brand that we are working for. We are working as journalists, not as employees of a particular organization. If that organization does not do good journalism, we should be looking at other places. I mean, it is as simple as that.
Absolutely.
And this is what we do not face up to.
Okay, well, Shoma, the editorial and the marketing wall has collapsed. There's no, I mean, that wall, when people like Dua used to be editors, I'm sure there was a wall there between the marketing. I mean, there actually existed a physical wall also from whatever my own experiences. That has collapsed.
Editorial wall.
It was an editorial wall, but it was a wall between the editorial and marketing. Yes.
Now they have abolished, many papers have abolished the post of editorial.
Post of
so the wall has been
You
demolished.
can't remember who the editors of many publications are. You know?
So, no, let us come to this Levison inquiry. Yesterday the report has come out, a 2,000-page report. One of the things which has, so many things has been said there, one of the things which is said is a regulator needs to be, in England now they are feeling that there has to be a regulation.
Oh, today the report has
Outside.
come.
Yeah,
Has
but,
come.
but regulator
A regulator who is not
Lord
from the
just-
newspaper industry and who is not from the government.
But
We have to find
underpaid-
somebody
Just-
outside.
underpaid
Just
by
the
the law.
report has come
Yes,
yesterday.
first let's Shoma, then both of you can react.
The thing I'd like to say is that I've been a very, very strong opponent of any regulation of the media by government or by judges. Even recently the Supreme Court judgment on how you should report on a case, I think these are very pernicious trends.
Absolutely.
I would still, even after this complete decline of what has happened with
Collapse,
Z,
virtually.
complete collapse, and it's a great wake-up call. This is our Murdoch moment. Even after that, I would resist regulation insofar as what constitutes journalism, what can be a story. I don't think there should be any ombudsman on that.
Absolutely.
But I think what Hartosh pointed out, what should be the structural composition of media is certainly something that should be discussed in Parliament, should be discussed publicly, and should be legislated. Because I think we've gone too way down that road. We must remember that the great journalistic outfits in the Western world have been created out of trusts. It is
Absolutely.
business houses, but who set up trusts so that they could operate independently. We don't have a trust in this
We
country.
don't have
which-
except the Tribune Trust, which still exists. Apart from that, we don't have any other
we
trust.
have to introduce the idea of philanthropic media, where you really set up institutions to serve a purpose. We must remind our society that there are values, and when I say values, not just moral values, there is an empirical value
Yes.
to having institutions that operate outside the evaluation of money.
Right.
It will keep the society safe, it will keep corporates safe. I keep telling corporates, you will make decisions. Important for you to make decisions based on correct data. If you're going to create such a soft, rosy-tinted world around yourself, you're not able to make decisions because you don't even know what's happening.
You don't get the
So-
right facts also.
Can I
Yes,
just,
Nalini.
on behalf of the electronic
Yes.
media, can I just say something? I mean, you and I perhaps would be more representing electronic media, and Hartosh, there is also, besides what Shoma says, there is also an intrinsic character of the electronic medium, which could also be putting it on skid row. One of the things that it has is one of the benefits or the major advantages it has on other media except online, but much more, is immediacy.
Absolutely.
The other one is personalities.
The
The
dynamic
third
study.
one is pictures.
Right.
So it's actually a structure around these three in terms of its content. Immediacy actually is skid row,
Right.
because you want to be the firstest with the mostest. Now, what happens is that in this you are also going to make sure that your costs will rise because you have live links, and you ask ISRO what they charge per hour, per 15 minutes, etc. And you have it from various places. You also have a tendency to shoot your mouth.
Yes.
You will say CNN does it, Fox News does it, everybody does it, but this is part of it. Personalities, you build up personalities,
Right.
and then they are seductive, and
Yes.
then those are the ones people watch. So I would just like to put this on the table. As we are debating this in Parliament, we've also got this intrinsic character of at least the electronic medium, which makes you wonder what to do about
Electronic
it.
medium is more
Nalini,
complicated. Mr. Dua.
even if there is a question of immediacy, urgency, costs of collecting the news, it does not absolve the electronic media also from its responsibility to check the facts
No, of
Absolutely.
course
and not give one-sided
Yeah,
version.
Totally,
Mr. Dua,
totally.
Mr. Dua, I want to, I want, I know, I want.
The question which Hartosh has raised
No, no, we
is
want
very
to- I want-
important, the ownership question.
Yeah.
Who owns the media?
No,
I thought the media is run for the public
Mr. Dua,
interest.
before you start, I want to add one more question so that you can respond to that also. Can we, I'm just throwing an idea, is it possible for us to, she was talking of the architecture of the media, the structure of the media. Can there be some certain regulations about who can be a journalist, who, when somebody is appointed an editor, should he completely absolve himself of the
That's
responsibility
one of the
anything of marketing?
I am going to the basic
Yes.
question which Hartosh and Shoma was taking. Who owns the media is the
Yes.
first question.
Yes,
Ownership of the media should not belong to business interests.
right.
And those who own the media,
And this
they
is-
should not be encouraged to go in for business. They
and
should
this is
make up their
something which
mind.
can be regulated.
They should
this is
be-
something which can be regulated.
Regulation
I think
question
this
will
is
come
a bit
later.
utopian, because
You know,
today this is the only
everything is
channel.
utopian.
No, no, sir.
Even
this is the-
credibility is becoming utopian these
Unless
days.
corporates will be in the media, so please
Then
remember that.
corporates are not behaving, I tell you.
Truly.
Only our experience is corporates not behaving,
Truly, sir.
and some media houses not owned by corporates have become corporates.
Yes, indeed. So
Those
let us look at
those
that.
who get mining
No, Mr.
licenses.
No, Mr.
No,
Yes,
the
just-
point
yes.
I'm making is,
Quickly, we are running out
number
of
one,
time.
the ownership question. If media is to serve the society and not just commercial interest, some limited profits for growth are needed. But you have to have public interest in mind, and corporate interests don't have public interest in mind. Pardon my saying, Nalini. Whosoever is owner
I
of
totally
the,
agree,
they
sir.
don't have their commercial interest in
Absolutely.
mind. And because you are saying the costs have gone up in TV media, the temptations are greater for them to use this media
Sir,
for corporate
we are
interest.
actually talking about the same. I'm saying that because of the costs.
But secondly,
you know,
regulation
this will be-
question
Yes.
you raised,
Quickly, Mr. Gupta.
Girish. It is very important to be regulation. The stand taken by the National Broadcasters Association that we don't need to regulate, we're regulating ourselves.
The self-regulation seems to have failed.
No,
do you agree?
it cannot but fail.
Mr.
The
Nalini,
reason not all the
we are-
TV
No,
channels
I
are
don't-
members
I
of them.
don't quite-
Has self-regulation failed?
No,
And
I think
is there
it is-
scope,
it-
is there
it-
still scope for self-regulation?
I think there is scope if the self, who is the self? Who is the self who's going to regulate? I think that control is something which will take away all freedoms.
Okay.
And regulation is something which, but who is this self?
Self. Is it-
And what is their
can the-
motivation?
This needs more discussion and debate. Yes, Mr.
The
Dua, quickly.
self-regulation cannot succeed because of the corporate interests.
Okay.
Whether-
So my last word is,
secondly, no, I'll just finish that here.
we are completely running out of time, Mr. Dua.
Even in land of where the concept of free press started, Britain,
They are
look at what
talking-
Murdoch has done to them.
Exactly.
Now,
It is in that context only.
Justice
Yes, Shoma, yes.
Levison's report which came yesterday.
So my last words to you, quickly.
I'd just like to say that, Nalini is right. Media, just the expense of media is huge. Whether it's, big money does have to underlie media. But I think we have to have the courage to say that it should be government that out of taxpayers' money sets up trusts which even the government doesn't control,
Yes.
or corporates, the only way they can get into media is to set up a trust. It becomes a
Okay.
feather in your cap. You might call it utopian. That's where we have to move, because
We-
otherwise this is not going to work.
Absolutely. Some utopian ideas have been thrown here, but we need to work on these ideas if media has to come out of this very serious credibility crisis which is facing in this country. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. H.K.Dua, Nalini Singh, Shoma Chaudhury and Hartosh Singh Bal. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on the same time, on the big picture, the same time on Monday.